everybody, welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we'll be looking at the heavily anticipated new entry in the long-running Halloween franchise, picking up 40 years after the first, bringing back Laurie Strode for a not exactly final confrontation with the infamous killer Michael Myers. First of all, I gotta say, of the entire gamut of horror villains out there in the world, Michael Myers is by far the most patient ever. I mean, he waited 15 years before his first rampage, and this time has been waiting 40 years to finally bust loose once more. It's honestly impressive how long this guy can wait. I get pissed if I have to wait in line at Subway for 15 minutes. I'm like, give me my damn foot long! For Michael, this extended period of lying dormant seems to have impacted him in a serious way. That desire to kill building up inside of him for decades, as here he's much more brutal than ever before, racking up a higher body count in the first 30 minutes than the entirety of the original movie, especially considering he's 60 years old at this point and still takes out so many people effortlessly. He's definitely got some pent-up aggression from being locked up for so long. Now, in case you don't know how this new one connects to the others in the series, it actively does not, making this incredibly the fifth different series continuity. We all know that the timeline and story is quite convoluted, and if you need a refresher on the entire story, make sure to check out my Halloween series explained video that covers the entire original series. However, with the latest entry, they have decided to erase the entirety of all the sequels, leaving this as a direct sequel to the original film and ignoring everything else that happened after. So that means the long important revelation of Michael being Laurie's brother is undone. There's no psychically connected niece Jamie, no kung fu master Busta Rhymes, and no Cult of Thorn, which with those last two is probably for the best.
Trick or treat, motherfucker!
However, rather than completely ignoring them, the new Halloween instead makes numerous references and pays homages to the originals in many ways. In a sense, it acts like the Force Awakens of the series, a kind of remix of familiar elements and tropes thrown in a blender with a more modern horror sensibility in order to appeal to a new generation of moviegoers who may not be familiar with the series. As someone who has seen them all multiple times, it felt more like nostalgia overload than anything else. Rather than doing anything new with them, it simply replays memorable moments with a slight twist. Even what is possibly the highlight of the movie, a one-take sequence of Michael stalking through a neighborhood, is directly lifted from Halloween 2. Even though the brutality of the kills is up this time, it's still something we've seen before. And this non-stop nostalgia made the experience ring a bit hollow to me overall. Don't get me wrong, it's still better than all of the sequels by a wide margin. Michael is definitely the scariest he's been in a long time, the kills and gore are the best in the series, and John Carpenter's score is absolute perfection. And overall, I still enjoyed the experience. It was certainly a welcome return for the beloved kitchen knife-wielding maniac. So let's dig into the new Halloween, breaking down the story, looking at the rumored original quite different ending, as well as explaining the theatrical one that leaves things wide open for a sequel. The new story takes place exactly 40 years after the events of the original, where on Halloween night in 1978 in the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, the disturbed young man Michael Myers donned a William Shatner mask and went on a babysitter-killing rampage, resulting in 5 deaths. After his longtime doctor, Dr. Loomis, shot Michael 7 times, his spree was ended, and Michael was taken back to his old hospital, Smith's Grove. There he has lied in wait for 40 years. Again, the patience of a saint. But a chance encounter seems to finally inspire him back into action. A duo of foolish podcasters, gallivanting as investigative reporters, are given access to meet Michael in a maximum security area of the facility. And one of them, Aaron, has something to show him. His original mask, which they were somehow able to borrow. I don't know who would let them do that. The sight of it causes a wild reaction from the other patients. Aaron yelling at Michael to get some kind of reaction from him. He doesn't give them anything for their precious podcast, but he certainly has a reaction knowing his mask is nearby, as he is presented with an opportunity later to escape during him being transferred on a bus. Naturally, the survivor of the first round of murders, Laurie Strode, has been keeping tabs on the killer and is aware of his transfer, but she actually hopes that Michael gets free so she can kill him once and for all. She's been spending her time preparing for this day, honing her survival skills and constructing a fortified house in the woods, all designed to trap Michael and kill him. Essentially, her entire life was fundamentally altered by her experience as a teenager back in '78, and while no longer a helpless young victim, she is severely traumatized by what happened, suffering from PTSD as well as being an alcoholic, in addition to 2 failed marriages. Her obsession with the past has caused a rift to form between her and her daughter Karen, whose entire life has also been tainted by Michael, as from an early age, her mother taught her survival skills including how to use a gun, which resulted in her being taken away by child services when she was 12. So their relationship is more than a little strained, though her and her granddaughter daughter Allison have a closer relationship, despite her mother even lying to keep them apart. All of these layers to the story were an interesting perspective on Laurie's evolution, but I don't feel they were really explored in any major depth. And strangely, Laurie feels somewhat more of a supporting character in the movie, leaving no opportunity to further explore the Strode family dynamic beyond establishing it on a merely surface level. As if there was any question, Michael escapes the bus, because there wouldn't be a movie otherwise, which in what I also felt was an odd decision, as we don't actually see his escape ourselves. After 40 years of pent-up rage, he could have gone absolutely apeshit, and that would have been a frightening sequence that let us know quickly how much more sadistic he has become. But instead, nope, they completely avoid it, and only have a father and son come across the aftermath on the side of the road. From here, he first kills the podcasters, reclaiming his mask, then heads back to town, and in a series of random sequences goes back to his favorite pastime of murdering fools. Though he generally kills everyone he encounters, there are a few interesting choices he makes that reveal that surprisingly even Michael has his limits. During the bus crash, we later overhear that the other patients were wandering around the area, as in not killed by Michael. Then later during the one-shot sequence, Michael comes across a crying baby, whose voice was hilariously done by Jamie Lee Curtis. And for a moment we're going, oh shit, is Michael gonna kill a baby? But he moves on, obviously making a moralistic choice in both of these moments, for some reason deciding not to kill them. It's a compelling new development to the character that hasn't really been seen before. Even though minor moments in the film, these actually have a big implication to how Michael thinks, that I hope we see more of in the future. As the bodies start piling up, Officer Hawkins, who was a deputy during the '78 incident, along with the new Loomis Dr. Sartain, team up with Laurie to try and track the killer down. Though Laurie, of course, is more interested in killing him than him getting arrested. And we already know the Haddonfield Police Department isn't exactly the brightest out there. Whoops, sorry Ben, and they're not much better 40 years later. Always a few steps behind Michael until Hawkins, Sartain, and Allison encounter him in the streets and plow right into him, to Hawkins seemingly killing him, which you think he'd know better. Turns out there's other psychos to worry about here too, as Sartain reveals his true nature in a ham-fisted twist. He's actually here to help Michael and kills Hawkins, even donning the shape mask and turning to Allison. And here, once again, Michael actively chooses to kill Sartain rather than Allison, who is closer, smashing his head with his foot, as he's at this point much more personally pissed at the doctor, though after he surely would have tried to kill her as well. Everything builds to the inevitable final showdown between Michael and the 3 generations of Strode women at Laurie's fortified cabin. As he descends upon the house, Laurie puts the other 2 in her hidden basement to keep them safe, then searches the rooms for Michael, closing down each one she goes through in order to trap him where she wants. Though he discovers Karen and Allison's hiding spot, and an extremely on-edge Karen grabs a gun, at first breaking down and hesitant to fire, until Michael starts coming down towards them and with new resolve shoots, knocking him back, but not stopping him. Laurie appears from the darkness behind, attacking him, and with the assistance of Allison stabbing him with his own knife, trap him in the basement, with bars covering the only way out. She then activates a series of gas pipes throughout the house, catching everything quickly completely on fire. The girls rush outside, getting a final glimpse of Michael trapped in the basement as flames surround him. Hitching a ride on the side of the road, the surviving Strodes escape, and we see the house continue to burn, yet never actually see Michael's fate, in a similar fashion to the ending of the first film. They also heavily focus on the fact that Allison is still holding Michael's knife in the back of the truck, which to me perhaps indicates that she has now had the killer's instinct brought out from within her, almost like a new version of Jamie from the original series. Or I could be completely off base with that. But the question is, does Michael survive or not? It's certainly hinted that he does survive the blaze, hearing his heavy breathing just as in the credits of the original, and since we don't see him die, the chances are that he is very much still alive, which to me kinda undoes the entire point of the movie, which has consistently been billed as the final showdown between Laurie and the killer. If he survives at the end, it kind of makes Laurie's journey for the past 40 years pointless, as she didn't kill him, which is what has consumed her life all these years. The reality is that there is zero doubt in my mind that there will be a sequel, so Michael can't die. And indeed, already there is word of Blumhouse beginning production on a follow-up, even before it did massive business at the box office. So it's pretty much a given at this point we'll be seeing a sequel. But it's almost like by taking this open-ended approach here, that it would be a disservice to bring Laurie back for the sequel. So she's just going to try to kill him again? It just doesn't quite work. Chances are they won't have Laurie return, but would focus more on the next generation of Strodes and how they take up the mantle of fighting the impossible to kill shape. Now, when it comes to the rumored original ending, it would have at least taken the story into a new direction, and still allowed Laurie to get the vengeance she has been after, acting more as a conclusion to her story than the theatrical ending. The original ending was said to have Laurie actually kill Michael for good, and it would have been Dr. Sartain who takes over as Michael, donning his mask as he did in one scene, and becoming the new Shape. While this ending would have been a more final outcome and allowed Laurie to have closure, it also sounds absolutely terrible, and I'm honestly happier with the open-ended approach if this was the alternative. And it's no wonder that after a test screening, the studio went back for reshoots on the ending, creating the version we saw theatrically. I just wish they were able to make it feel more final than they chose to, as considering this, their final showdown in the end, feels more like a cop-out than anything else, because it is not final in any way whatsoever. Not that I can blame them either for wanting to leave the door open for further sequels. There is a moment from the first trailer clearly from the end sequence of the movie that was cut, showing Laurie outside going mano a mano with Michael and brandishing his knife. According to someone that did see the advanced screening in April, this was indeed from the later reshot original ending, which they described as being pretty bad. Though they also say that Michael was alive and well in this version, so perhaps the Sartain taking over approach are rumors and nothing more. Hard to know for sure until they perhaps include the original ending on the home video release. Regardless of all this stuff, it's the theatrical ending that's canon, and will be what they base the sequel story on. And according to director David Gordon Green, there are two dangling threads from this film that could be explored in the sequel. First and foremost, the fact that Laurie doesn't stick around to make sure that Michael got toasted in the fire. David indicating her returning to the house in search of his remains would be something he might include in part 2. There's also Allison's crappy boyfriend who at the school dance randomly cheats on her for no reason, but rather than finishing the story, with him getting killed, we never see the kid again, and this thread is completely dropped. Green said this was actually intentional to leave this story up in the air to pursue further in the sequel. He also shares a big connection to the original, as he's the son of Lonnie, a young kid from the first movie. So there's a few things that will most likely show up in the next entry. As far as what I would like to see in the sequel, it would be nice to see something different and surprising with the story, rather than continuing the homage fest. They have hints of this, like Mike's suddenly developed morals, and this is truly something new and adds more to the character. Take that as the basis to expand from, and really dig into both his and Laurie's character if she returns. Otherwise, it will just become more of the same thing over and over with each sequel, which is what killed the franchise in the first place. Take some more risks, and use the opportunity of the new continuity to take things into its own direction, and make damn sure Carpenter comes back to do the score. Start with all of that, and then you have the basis for something special, and something that actually warrants coming back for in further sequels. Okay, that'll do it for my look at the new Halloween. I wasn't necessarily disappointed, as the series has already been pretty hit and miss, but still feel like it didn't quite hit the heights that I wanted, while it was still in many aspects the best the series has been since the original. So even that is admirable. And don't forget you can send me video requests for movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. Thanks guys! What did you guys think of Halloween and its ending? What would you like to see in the sequel? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.